Mike Prendergast, I suppose, a guy who is no stranger to Toulon, a guy, and part of a team that edged them a couple of weeks ago, actually on St Patrick's Day. So, Mike, when you were preparing to face Toulon, is there a massive difference between facing them at home and away in regards to to preparation? I know most French sides put that little are a bit more conservative, I suppose, when going away from home. But do you find that Toulon struggled to play the kind of game against yourselves, and did it make slightly easier in the context the fact that you had them at home?
I suppose, yeah. Look, we played them before Christmas there. I think it was on the 23rd, actually, just before Christmas, 23rd December. And for 50 minutes of the game, we led. And they were just able to bring on a bench, and they just overpowered us for the last 20 minutes and ended up winning the game, I think, by about 15, 18 points. And I suppose this time round, we went with the same mentality, just the way we play and the way we're set up. We look to hold on to the ball for long phases, get through multi phases, and if you don't score, potentially you're looking at a team like Toulon, because I suppose their goal is to have the ball, because that's what they're so strong and they've so much power. So we tried to frustrate them by holding on to it, and they got a small bit ill disciplined this time round. We two, as I said, always against the big teams like Toulon, like Clermont, like Racing, and these teams. There's only going to be 3 or 4 clear-cut opportunities, to get 5, 7 points. So we knew that, and we just felt that if we could hold on to the ball for long phases, potentially win penalties and get more, I suppose, field position, or if it was in kicking range. And that's basically how the match materialised, because I think we frustrated them by holding on to it. As I said, their go-to is to have the ball. They're very dangerous, obviously, off turnover ball, off counter-attack, any kind of unstructured stuff, because they're just such good individuals. So we knew from our kicking game, we'd have to be very, very accurate. We kicked contestably, because I suppose with their wingers, their two Fijian wingers, incredibly good with ball in hand, but they can be exploited in the air, and if you turn them. And also, what we did, as I said, we held on to the ball for long passages of the game, so, and managed to eke out 3, 6, 9 points. As I said, we scored 2 tries against them, and that kind of, I suppose, was the difference. Obviously, at the end of the day, in a close game, whereas previous, as I said, around Christmas we played them similar enough. We scored 3 tries in the first half, and then they brought on a bench, and it made the difference. It just, they outpowered us. At the time, we were probably not as fit as we are now, and that was something, I suppose, that we knew that, it's easy to say hold on to the ball and get through phases. Obviously, your breakdown has got to be very, very, very precise, but also, you've got to be fit to do it as well. And it's something that we got through, because we knew if you're trying to defend against a team like Toulon, if you cough up easy ball against them, they're going to wear you down, because they're just so physical.
Yeah, with regards to the battle at the breakdown on the floor, I suppose, did you feel that you were able to disrupt Toulon's possession in a way that kind of took their key runners out of the game, or was it more a case of you trying to hold on to your own ball? I mean, do you think that
It was
Munster could?
more, yeah, it was more about holding on to our own ball and being just precise in our own breakdown. Obviously, we knew that they had they have a lot of threats on the ground. Geraldo, who's very, very good on the floor, he obviously didn't play against us that night. Dwayne Vermeulen's very, very good on the floor. He did. We obviously had pinpointed him out, but a big call, I think, this weekend will be if Geraldo plays or not. Purely from he's their inspiration. He's obviously the French captain as well. But he's a very, very good player. But he's a very mentally tough guy as well. He's a guy that will, I think, is massively important if he plays or not. From a point of view of just coming to Thomond Park, someone was asking me, will they fear it? I genuinely think they will. I've read a couple of articles over here. Um, Fernandez Labe has, because he obviously went there with Sale a couple of years ago, and he was there with Toulon. Not too many of the Toulon team were there in, I think it was 2010, so it'll be very new for them. Now, albeit you're talking about players that have, huge experience and stuff, but international experience. But from a club game to go to Thomond Park, I think is something that will be very new to them. And Fernandez Lopez spoke about that. And that's where I think guys like leaders like Geraldo will be massively important, because he is that kind of figure, Another guy will be Bastero, obviously, as well. He is in form. Um, so those guys will be really, really important. And just getting back to your question, I suppose, of the breakdown, they're two players that, for me, Geraldo, as I mentioned, if he plays or not, I'm not sure. And Dwayne Vermeulen are extremely good on the ground. And obviously, if Bastero plays anything in midfield, it carries the breakdown has to be very, very accurate as well, because once they get over the ball, him or Nanu or Feketao, whoever is playing, they're extremely strong, extremely technically good on the deck.
Yeah, I think at the weekend against the Scarlets, Munster's ruck stats were 80 from 80, which just goes to show you that the kind of precision that they did. I think they only coughed up a turnover or a ruck penalty as the clock was in the red in the 80th minute. We've seen the changeover from Jack Nienaber to JP Ferreira in the Munster defence. Do you think that Munster would benefit from attacking the breakdown defensively? Now, I know we've seen Chris Clouthier is gone, and that's an element to their back row that is going to be lacking. I think you just brought a different element that they didn't have. Do you think they're better off attack the breakdown defensively, or would you imagine that they would be better off to just make the tackle and fan out and wait for the next?
It just depends. Breakdown decisions is a decision making, it's a decision making tool that, if the opportunity is there, absolutely you go in. You don't go after, dead rocks or dead balls, because you just lose numbers. And I think against Toulon, and it's something we focus on as well, you've got to try and keep as many players on your feet in the defensive line that you can get off the line. Because if your numbers down, obviously you've got to soften up your defence. Soften up a defence against Toulon with their ball carriers, and people think of Toulon, they're a massively physical side. Of course they are. It's actually where they have the power and the size and the pace is in the back line. Their pack is obviously, it is a big pack. I think Munster personally are a far better technical pack in terms of their maul, their scrum, their line out defence. I just think I think Munster will have the upper hand in the pack. But the thing is just about, as I say, keeping numbers on your feet, making good decisions at the breakdown, whether to go at it or whether just to leave it. The collision, obviously, before, it'll be huge, to try and slow that ball some bit down, because the problem is and I suppose we saw it there on Sunday against Clermont, is just if they get quick ball, just with the power and the pace they have out wide, not even out wide in the midfield also as well, it can create problems. So, Munster, I'm sure, will be well aware of that. And I would imagine Munster will look to kick contestable. And once they're in the Toulon half, to try and hold on to the ball and build high multi-phases. I would imagine they look at their fitness as well. I would imagine Munster are a fitter team, and eke out those penalties with potential ill discipline as well. So it's set up to be a really, really, exciting game.
Yeah, I know you mentioned the Toulon midfield. One of the talking points from the press conference this week, when I think it was Ian Keatley was asked to compare the different defensive influence between Ferreira and Nienaber, and he said that under Jacques Nienaber, they tended to maybe send Chris Farrell as a shooter a lot more out of defence, or they were allowing guys to kind of rush up and make that call. Now, he said they're still allowed to do that, but he said there's more of an emphasis on being connected as a defensive line. How do you, I suppose, when you're looking at the likes of Nanu and Bastero, that's as physical a midfield as you're going to see. Does that put a lot of pressure on your defensive line out, especially if you have I suppose, a smaller midfield than the opposition?
It does, yeah, absolutely. It's just about cutting down their space and not giving them space, not giving them momentum, because I suppose we've seen it over the years, and especially recently, how effective someone like Matthew Bastero can be. You've got to cut down his space. But I think something that has been really evident over the last, I suppose, 2 or 3 months is his offloading game has improved an awful lot. He attracts defenders and seems to get those arms free. He's always kind of done it, but I just think personally over the last 2 or 3 months, he's really on top of his game. I don't know, maybe it's Fabien Galtier going in there when Geraldo doesn't play. Bastro's captain, he's kind of taken on a bit more responsibility, and he's captain of the French team there a couple of times as well when Geraldo has been out. So, for players like them, you've got to cut down that space as much as you can, So, and I think it'll be interesting to see as well what midfield combination they'll go with. I would think they'll go with Bastro and Feketawa and leave Nano on the bench potentially, So they've an embarrassment. Riches in their back line, You look at guys like. Problem is, it's not just those two boys in the midfield. You've got Toussaint, who's on his day, he's just devastating. You have Radradra, who's the ex-rugby league player. He's been phenomenal over here. He's been playing centre and wing. I'd imagine he'd be playing wing on Saturday. And then they've Chris Ashton or they've Bonival. They've Chris Ashton, who's a complete attacking, full-back. Wing is his better position. He's the highest try scorer. He's actually equalled Nalaga's try scoring record of 21 tries already this season, and there's still a number of games to go, so I'm sure he'll break that. He's been phenomenal over here, but it just depends on what balance they go with. They'll go with him on the wing and Bonival, which would probably be better from an aerial point of view, and it's something I'm sure they'll be well aware of. Obviously, with Connor's box kicking, I would think they might go with Ashton on the wing and Bonival full back, and either of Radradra or Toussaint. So, you can focus on the midfield, absolutely, but they have that power, pace and size, and it's just about not allowing them space, and cut that down.
I noticed you in the previous point. You said that the fitness it can be not an issue, but can certainly come into play. Did you, I suppose, notice? Can you notice a drop off in Toulon's defensive work, I suppose, or their defensive cardio, especially in a multi-phase attack when they're having to defend ruck after ruck? Do they get tired, or obviously every team gets tired, but is there any chink there that Munster can target?
Yeah, I was quite surprised in a way that when we played them down there, I felt, when they had the ball, they were happier. This time round was totally opposite. I was speaking to their forwards coach, who was the ex director of rugby in Grenoble, Fabrice Landreau, and he said to me they actually put a big focus on their defence coming up against us. And to be fair, I thought they filled the field very well because they were so big. They were winning collisions. They were able to slow down our ball, but what we managed to do was just to keep it alive and hold on to it. And as I said, when we went over kind of 10, 11 phases, once we got in past that, we could see there were small bits of space here and there, and there was a bit of ill discipline, and we started winning penalties and clocking up the score line. And as I said, we managed just to score 2 tries, one albeit at the very end. But I was actually a bit surprised how I suppose fitter they were as well, and it's something that over the last number of years, traditionally, I suppose you look back at the team that won 3 in a row, when you Johnny Wilkinson, who ran that team, and he was so massively respected by everybody, by both the foreigners and the French, and he was a real, I suppose, main player there. Since the likes of himself and Becky Spoda and players like that have moved on, they've probably dropped down. They went through 3 head coaches last year in Diego Dominguez, Mike Ford, and Richard Cockrell, albeit Cockrell was leaving anyway. But there's been a lot of, I suppose, upheaval there. This year, Fabien Galtier and Fabrice Landreau have went in, and there seems to be more stability. And I've noticed in their away games as well, that they're very hard at home, but their away games, you look at their last Champions Cup game, I reckon if there was another 5 or 10 minutes left against the Scarlets, they could have won that, and what a tough place to go. I know it was a wet night against a team that move you around as well, So, and recently as well, they won in La Rochelle, So they've got that bit between their teeth. I don't think they'll realise what they're going to come up against on Saturday when they go to Thomond Park. No matter how much you say it, until you actually experienced it. I actually experienced it myself a number of years ago, and I was playing with Borgoan against Munster, and it's phenomenal to go there and play, you know, and that's where I think Munster's start will be huge, to get the crowd in behind them, and you know when that starts happening, Munster are a hard team to break down. Even albeit there's a lot of injuries and stuff, I just see Munster having the tactical. They'll win the tactical battle, I think, in terms of their kicking, their aerial battle, and their ability to hold on to the ball. I think I'd imagine that's what they'll go after, holding on to the ball. Obviously, in Toulon's half, and as I said, trying to get through a lot of multi phases, and you know, whether it be 3-6 points, you know, you keep that scoreboard ticking over, and obviously things will loosen up. You'd hope then after that as well, you know, for potential 5-7 pointers.
I suppose just the general consensus from the chat with you is that Munster will have to be patient and very, very precise. How do you, I suppose, patient, precise, and their fitness will have to hold up as well. You also mentioned the bench. You know, Toulon will have that option. I'm sure they'll be coming to here with a bench with more experience with them, and with a bench that will more than likely have the potentially bigger impact. So, how important is it that Munster are that they are precise? We saw their starts against against the Scarlets and against Zebre. They haven't been starting games well. I think against the Scarlets this week they were very, very narrow. Their defense was narrow early on, and we saw Scarlets seem to look like they had an extra player on the field at times when the ball went wide. How crucial is it for Munster, number one, that they don't give Toulon a start, and number two, that if there are issues with let's say the defence being narrow, or if they are on-field issues, that they resolve them as soon as possible?
Yeah, I think you mentioned the bench. You know, Toulon have got a couple of players back as well. You know, especially names like Gorgatzi, the big second row, back row Georgian, who came off the bench there last week against Clermont. You know, so they have firepower, and I think, you know, in games like this, they're massive games. They're so important. I actually think this could be one of Munster's best victories if they win this. I do think they'll win it because I think they'll have the technical edge on it. As I said about their set piece it's technically very, very good, you know. And I think from a point of view of that will really highlight, I suppose, the strength that Toulon have and their bench. That will really highlight, and Munster will be very aware how much, for many different reasons, they really need to start this game well. And it's something you alluded to there earlier on. Maybe they haven't been starting games well, so I'm sure there'll be a big focus on that to get out of the traps early, get a big start, get the crowd behind. Hopefully those things start falling, those little 50-50 balls. You know, they go to the aerial battle, which Munster are just so strong at. You know, and they're real big moments in the game, and you know, we've seen it over the last number of years where Connor puts up a box kick and winger gets up, wins it, and Munster on the front foot. So all those things will have to go their way, to be honest with you. But as I said, I think it could be one of the biggest wins that Munster, if they get through, will have, considering who they're against. I suppose in general the form Toulon have been in, and you know, as you alluded to earlier on, just there's a couple of injuries with Munster, but you know what? This is when Munster always come out on top, and you know, when backs are against the wall, and they've huge belief in themselves as well. And the big thing is they're at home. They're at home, you know, and there's been days out like this. They're probably still, you know, even smarting from last year's losses towards the end. They know this is business side of the business end of the year, you know. So they'll have their work 100% done all week. They'll have good prep done, and I think they'll get over the line personally.